Hey guys, Kev here, and I want to do some rapid reviews slash overviews. These are 3 knives that I have done videos on, full videos on, disassemblies on 2 of them, and unboxings and such. So I didn't want to do full, reviews on any of them, but I wanted to go through them and talk about them. So the first one is going to be this Tuya Knives Mutt. This one is a fantastic knife. This was designed by Dave Warren and Colin Mason-Pierre, who happens to be my business partner on Divo knives. But he also designs knives under CM Knife Designs. This one's an S90V. It's a Tuya knife. You can see you got titanium. You have this, what I call Chinese fat carbon, because that's pretty much what they call it over there. But I would call it like colored fat carbon, CFC or CCF, something like that. Colored carbon fiber, maybe. This one's the green and sort of teal with some yellow in it, basically toxic. It has a nice titanium milled clip. Very cool design. It's got some elements of a traditional knife. Like this is a Jack Wolf knife slip joint. So it's got some of that traditional knife look to it, right? It's got the fluting, the bolster with the inlay. It's got the keystone, the crest, sorry, in there. The shield, I guess you would call it. I think it's done pretty damn well, which is cool. And so yeah, it has some modern look, but then it also has some, here's one we're going to talk about in a second. It has some, I say modern, I meant traditional. It has some modern look as well, right? Just a bolster lock sort of deal as well. So let me put this away. So yeah, the Mutt is very cool. Titanium and S90V, got this belt satin grind. It is a flat grind. I wish it was hollow. I have a couple gripes with the knife. The first one is that I wish it was a hollow grind, but I say that about almost every knife. The second is the detent. I just wish it had come a little bit stronger. I did tune it, so I put a little bit of pressure on that lock bar. And luckily, we had no issues. It didn't really make the lock bar any tougher to push out of the way. We still have great droppy action, but now we have a nice snappy detent. It also doesn't really click into place. It's better now, but when I got it, it would just kind of thud in. Still does occasionally. It depends on how you're holding it, I guess. But it would just, kind of thunk in because the detent wasn't strong enough. It was fine. It was acceptable. It just wasn't my preference. But once I tuned it, it really did improve the knife for me significantly. Centering is dead nuts, but if you tighten it down all the way, it will come over to the clip side a little bit. There's a little bit of play if I wrench on it, but not enough to bother me. And I have it kind of Loctited where it needs to be. No pivot lash, no detent lash. Again, the detent is now money. You have this jimping right here, catches your finger well. It kind of reminds me of like a Laconico flipper tab from like an Easy C or something like that. So very nice. I like the flipper hole combo because usually you get a nice snappy detent, and then that makes it where the reverse flick's really satisfying. This knife does work really well left-handed and right-handed. So left-handed, just give it the old flick, no problem. Don't have to worry about where your fingers are or anything. It would be very abnormal to have my finger right here on the detent. I'm always going to be down here, and even if I rest up a little bit, I can still flick it. Obviously, right-handed, that's no problem. Not touching the lock bar on the flipper tab or anything. You could probably thumb flick it if you try. I've never really tried, so there you go. You can probably roll it out if you really want to, but I'm gonna flick it and flick it. Flip it and flick it, basically. I like the little swell right here ergonomically. It's not the most comfortable back here because of that flipper tab, but you can choke up on it. It's basically meant to be a flipper choil, as I call it, and I get a perfect grip when I do that. I'm not worried about cutting myself. Maybe if you're doing super hard tasks, you could worry about that. It's nice and sharp on that S90V. Lock bar access is good. Nice little chamfer there, cut back a little bit so you can get in there, shake it down. You can come down a little bit and have it just swing right past that flipper tab if you don't want to have it hit your finger. It works really well. It's a great knife. I can't remember the exact price. I think it's somewhere around $250, which I think is great. This is number 58 of 107. That's probably in this colorway. I think there was 3 options for colors. There was the sort of toxic look, there was the sort of nebula look, which is like USA colors, and I think there was one other one I can't recall, but very cool. Tuya Mutt, check it out. TuyaKnifeUS.com, I believe, is the website. They're also going to be available at Blade HQ, and I believe one other dealer I can't think of, White Mountain Knives probably. So check those out. I'll link what I can down below for you, and I do recommend this guy quite a bit. So real quick, since I showed it earlier, let's do a quick talk on the laid back jack. So I did an unboxing and a comparison of it against the V1, and I've been carrying this every day since the drop, since I got it. That's pretty much, I don't know, 3 weeks now straight. It's been in my pocket. It's just what happens with Jack Wolf knives. They come in, they go in my pocket, and they just have a hard time leaving. I like having a slip joint in the pocket most of the time, and if I have a new Jack Wolf, that's what's in there. I will also rotate in my Kvist Vanish and some other Jack Wolf knives as well, but usually the most recent Jack Wolf will be found in my pocket. I have this absolutely stunning slip from Troy. This is in ghost leather, but this is a little different. It has the white wax over it. So it's the red Butero or Butera leather, and then it has the white wax over it. This looks fantastic. At first, it kind of looked a little pink, but once you get that knife in there, it really just makes the red pop out. And as this wears in, it's just going to get more and more patina and look absolutely stunning. I am stoked on it. If you guys are looking for leather slips for anything, hit up Troy over at Northwoodsleatherworksco. Look at this thing. Absolutely beautiful. 7-stitch pattern. And yes, sometimes I'm more in love with the slip than the knife. It's just, his work is so good. But this knife is phenomenal. Absolutely killed this re-release. I am enjoying the ever-loving shit out of it. So much more than I ever expected to enjoy the laid-back jack. Pinchability off the charts. Spring is perfect. It's a nice just 7. I mean, it's just a perfect 7, and it bounces and pops and jumps, and it just, man, it's so fun to fidget with. The little bit of a sway back in the handle just makes it really comfortable to handle and manipulate when you're fidgeting like this or using it. You know, when you're popping it out to cut something, get a perfect grip with my large glove size hands. I usually rest up like this. If I'm, you know, not cutting something where I'm going to be putting pressure down, I'll do this. I'll cut like this when I'm cutting something through, right? Make sure I don't close it on myself, but you'd have to put a lot of pressure into one of these to accidentally close it coming out of a cut. Triple flute on that aluminum oxide blasted titanium with the lava flow fat carbon on this guy. S90V with the belt satin and the full hollow grind, just continuing to crush. There were 5 versions of this, and there was all different options: hand satin, belt satin, DLC. Then there was Kieranite, fat carbon, wood, and then full tie. I mean, you just had a lot of options this time around. It was really nice to see. And yeah, I just really love this laid back jack. They did a phenomenal job on this guy. So big shout out to Jack Wolf Knives. I will link all the dealers that I have affiliate links with down below, as well as their dealer list. Troy is always linked in the description. So is the Jack Wolf Knives website. Down at the bottom of my descriptions, there's always those 2 things linked. The next one here is a absolute favorite of mine, the Berg Blades Sweeney. I have fallen head over heels in love with this knife. We are honeymooning hard. I've had this for a few weeks and it has not left my pocket. Put skifferoonies in here. I think when I got it, I had the slightest bit of pivot lash. Pivot lash is not detent lash. Some people interpret those two things. Detent lash is where like you can wiggle the blade like this while it's closed because the detent hole is too big or something. Pivot lash is where when the blade is not closed and not locked up, you can actually push the blade in and out. Basically, the way I look at it is the hole in the blade is too big for the pivot, or the bearings, maybe the holes are too big, I'm not sure, and you can move it in and out a little bit. But a lot of times skiffs fix that. I don't know if it's because the skiffs surrounding the blade kind of lock it in place into that pivot. I'm not sure how that exactly works, but it can save a knife from pivot lash, and that was the case here. It was minimal to begin with, but the skiffs did save it, which was really nice. I believe they were 5mm 1/16 11 ball bearing, 11 ball skiffs. I have a disassembly video on this knife as well as on this knife, the Tuya Mutt. Check it out. We have a beautiful belt satin on this 20 CV blade. Pretty sure it's 20 CV. Beautiful belt satin. Nice pill-shaped hole. You have this really nice marbled carbon fiber. Just beautiful. It's nice to see this stuff back on a knife and not everything being camo carbon and fat carbon. I'm guilty of doing it as well, but we have a great detent. Unbelievable lock bar access. I just can't get enough of this knife. We have a beautiful flipper tab up here for a reach around. You can do the rollback, but it's not as satisfying because of the way that angle is on the flipper tab. You got to really kind of bite it and pop it. But the reach around and the normal front flip are fantastic. If you are a novice front flipper or you suck at front flippers, this is a great one because it's really hard to miss. It has a good detent, and as long as you put your finger up here and pull back, you're really not going to miss it. It's excellent. Then you have the hole, which can be reverse flicked excellently, even left-handed. It's a bolster lock, but it's kind of a short bolster, or a tall bolster, however you want to put it. A lot of lock bar is showing, so if I come up here and put my finger on the lock bar, I can't flick this left-handed. But my pretty much natural grip is like right here, and I can fire it from there, no problem. Yes, occasionally I will not be able to flick it, and I'm like, shit, but it's pretty rare. I've got it dialed in pretty good. Right-handed, no worries on that. You just flick the shit out of it. You can thumb flick this knife, no problem. It's an enjoyable thumb flick. Detent is dialed for it. I don't do it left-handed very often, so I'm not used to that. But right-handed, I actually use the thumb flick quite often because it's satisfying. It has a good thud if you hear it. Pops really well. Then I'll come up here, do that move. Sometimes I'll roll it back. Then I'll come around, do the reach around, and then I'll give it the old flickeroni. So it's just great. Ergos are wonderful in this grip back here, and then choked up, even better. It's just excellent. No jimping, doesn't need it. Cuts really well. I've used this actually quite a bit. I just cleaned the blade up with some knife shields. Really sharp. And I think this is just a sleeper. I mean, they're mostly sold out. I think the Damascus and some micartas are available. But I feel like people are sleeping on this design. And I hope he does another run. I hope he keeps this model going. I love the concept of what he's doing with, all the Sweeney Todd references and whatnot. I did ask him about the Barber button lock and the mini Barber to see if I could check them out. I think he's going to send me some loaners to check out, which is awesome. Matt over there is just a great dude, which is obviously a beautiful thing. And, yeah, the action on this is just fantastic. Dead nut centered on them skifferooness. Has a double-sided spinning pivot type barrel. Some people don't like that. I don't mind that at all. That's one of my favorite styles of pivots. Easy to maintain, nice to use, and doesn't bother me aesthetically at all. So Riyadh does a good job with those. So So there you go. That is the Berg Blades Sweeney. Super high on my list of knife of the year for 2023. This and the Cavill Knives Denka are probably dominating that list currently. So the last one here is the Null Knives Voodoo. So you've seen me unbox this knife like twice, I think. And I've actually had 3 of them. Well, technically 4, but I didn't show you the first one because it was the K&P edition, and it wasn't mine. It was a buddy's, and I sent it right off to Australia. Then I got my pre-order, which was this version, and the first one I got, I did the unboxing, loved it, and I noticed when I got home that the scale was actually warped a little bit, so it was sticking up a little bit here. And I could push down on it, and it would kind of crack. It would go crack, 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 like real cracking sounds. I took it apart and tried to like see if it was just misaligned, and that kind of helped, but it still was proud of the frame here. So I reached out to Null Knives. It was also, I think, ever so slightly off center. I reached out to Null Knives, and they said they would replace it. So they sent me another one. And I sent that one back, obviously. And then I unboxed the second one. I believe you guys saw that as well. I unboxed it at the same time I unboxed the Blaurock Blaze BRB4. And that one had pivot lash. So we talked about this earlier, I think, where between, when it's not, how do I say this? When it's not in the closed position and not in the open position, when it's in between. You can pull the blade in and out because there's space in there. And it was pretty bad because I would do this and it would really start like making all these sounds when I did that. So contacted Null Knives again, and they were kind enough to give me a shipping label, and they sent me a third one, which was this one. I got it today. And out of the box, the scale was actually sort of proud again of the frame. And it had just slight pivot lash. So I actually kind of thought they sent me back the first one that I originally had. Because the first one I had this tiny little scratch down here. Which this one actually has as well. I don't know if I can show it to you. But I think I figured out that they're not the same one because the scratch was much more minor this time around. And I honestly can't even find it right now. So maybe when I clean the blade, that took care of whatever it was. It's like right there. I don't think you can see it. I think it's probably something normal just from, you know, them doing the hand satin or whatever they do to knock this edge down. Anyway, I took it apart and I put skiffs in. And when I took it apart, I took the scale off and reseated everything. And it must have fixed it because when I put it back together, this scale is now flush. There's only like one area where I can... see, now I can't grab it at all. So it totally reseated itself and realigned it. And then I put the skiffs in, and putting the skiffs in actually got rid of the in and out pivot lash. So that's gone. Like I said, that can do it. So we have this guy dead centered, great detent, no side to side. There's maybe the slightest up and down when I do this, but I'm really wrenching on it and it's not really anything. And no pivot lash, no detent lash. It feels great. So I am happy to announce that I have my Null Knives Voodoo here, the one that will be in my collection, whether that be long-term or whatever. But I'm good to go. And I want to just note that their customer service was fantastic. Sean never questioned me or did anything other than have great customer service. Offered to send me new knives to replace it, etc. And I feel like the customer service was fantastic. So I just want to put that out there. Yes, I had a couple issues, but I think the second one with the pivot lash could be boiled down to my crazy OCD, because most people are not even going to check for that. I mean, you have to literally have the blade like this and be pulling on it. It's not closed, not open. It's not side to side or anything like that. It's not lock, rock, detent lash. It's not any of that. It's pivot lash. some people it is something we check for, and you know, once you know it's there, it's hard to get out of your head, right? So I think they are good to go. You know, I tend to always get lemons. It's just how it goes for me. You guys have seen the channel long enough to know that. And I'm really happy with this. The skiffs are breaking in. I flipped the washers over, so now the skiffs are really wearing their path in. When I first put it back together, it took a little shake from here. I would push the lock bar and it wouldn't drop. It would stay open a second. I had to give it a little shake and then it would fall. And those washers are breaking in. The detent track's breaking in. I mean, look at that. Just butter. Dead nuts down the line with the notch. That's impressive. The detent is good. I mean, if you think about it, if I grab it like this, I can feel it has a nice, strong detent. It doesn't feel like the strongest detent when I flick it, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm flicking it all the way down here. Look how far away I am from the pivot. If I flick it up on this stud, it's a nice stout detent. So you just have to know that no matter how strong you make this detent, if you know you're flicking it from down here, it's never going to feel like it's super strong. But it is satisfying. Feels great. And the more that it breaks in, the better it's getting. And I'm not the biggest fan of combos of studs and holes just because I like holes better. But on this knife, man, it really works. And it shows you that done correctly, it can be such an amazing asset to a knife to have studs and fuller, because that thumb flick is so fun. And then the reverse flick, I can use the fuller and really enjoy like any other reverse flick. So one thing I want to note, something that you guys should pay attention to when you disassemble your knives, is if you put KPL heavy on your detent track, like I always tell you to, keep an eye on this area of the blade tang here where it locks up, because you will get a transfer of oil the longer you flick it. And if you let that go too long, it could end up causing stick or transferring over to the lock bar and maybe causing you stick down the line. So I like to clean this regularly with Q-tip. You can get these Q-tips from KPL. Check out my link down in the description always. You can use LeftyEDC at knifepivotlube.com. You can get these, the oil, the lube, all of that stuff. And I like to clean those off, and I just get a little alcohol in there, and then I'll flick it open, and then I'll get some alcohol in the lock bar. I'll do the same thing with this knife. You know, I just do this for the first maybe couple weeks that I have a knife and took it apart. And that just usually means it's going to last longer without having any kind of maintenance required. I just try to keep my knives clean. But there you go. There's a look at 4 knives. Not my shortest rapid review. I've been doing pretty good at keeping those short, but I really love these knives. All 4 of these are phenomenal. They're all bangers. You know, price-wise, you're looking at $300. You're looking at $325. You're looking at, I have no idea, $350 maybe it was, $350 or $400 for these. This is hand satin and camo carbon, and I wanted to show you actually. If you look at these two, they're not all that dissimilar. I really think marbled carbon fiber has gone by the wayside, but it's such a phenomenal material. I like how it looks. I do like how this looks as well, but and then this one I believe was $250. So a little bit more premium stuff here, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. By the way, both of these are Riot OEM. This one is Tuya, and this one we don't know who Jack Wolf Knives uses, but they're Riot quality. They're up there, right? Yeah, leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. If you're a new viewer just checking out the videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. Hit the thumbs up button. Anything will help. YouTube has me a little bit down in the dumps right now, so I would really appreciate any push I can get. Comments help. Thumbs up help. Sharing it would help. Anyway, I love you guys. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will catch you later.